Hello, my friends. It's Julie again with Dragonfly Awakening of Colorado, and welcome to the third episode in the Transformation Station series. So far, we've explored how to recognize and begin healing your core wound. I mentioned that next we'd be talking about the in-between space, what it looks like when you're still becoming your healed self, and we will. But before we get there, I just wanted to pause and talk about something else that's important. You've probably noticed that I often talk about patterns, conditioning, and behaviors, things that sound pretty psychological, even though I'm not a psychologist. There's a reason for that, and I think it's worth exploring. So that's what we're going to talk about today. Since psychology is in the spotlight today, I'll say again that I am not a licensed therapist. What I share here comes from my own experience, education, and spiritual perspective. Please take what resonates, leave the rest, and if something deeper does come up for you, reach out to a licensed therapist or counselor for support. Psychology and spirituality are much more connected than I think most people realize. I use a lot of psychology in my material because it's so deeply intertwined with spiritual growth and with even awakening. Psychology looks at how your thoughts, emotions, and behaviors are shaped, while spirituality looks at who you are underneath all that. I believe true healing happens when the two merge. You can't fully awaken spiritually if your human self is still trapped in unhealed trauma and defense mechanisms, because those patterns distort your perception. And you can't fully heal psychologically without touching the deeper questions of meaning, purpose, and belonging, which are inherently spiritual. They're two perspectives on the same journey. One studies the human self, the other studies the higher self. When you start healing emotionally, when you challenge beliefs that you've held for most of your life, calm your nervous system, and learn new ways of responding, you're not just improving your mental health, you're creating the conditions needed for your soul to expand. When you start lifting that boulder of guilt, shame, and self-doubt off of yourself, your spirit finally has room to breathe and grow. Your soul can't rise freely if it's trapped under a rock. This is why I say psychology and spirituality are two sides of the same coin. The work you do to understand your patterns and emotions is spiritual work. So let me give you some examples. When you start doing inner child healing, psychology would say you're reparenting yourself and repairing early attachment wounds. Spiritually, you're reconnecting with that innocent, unguarded part of yourself that still trusts life. When you practice self-regulation, calming your nervous system, slowing your breath, choosing presence instead of panic, that's not just a mental health skill. It's also an act of embodiment. It's your spirit learning how to fully inhabit your body and feel safe being here on Earth. When you set boundaries, psychology calls that healthy individuation. Spiritually, it's self-respect. It's your energy saying, I am sacred and not everything gets access to me. When you challenge limiting beliefs, psychology calls it cognitive restructuring. Spiritually, it's liberation. It's looking these illusions in the face that have continued to dim your light and steal your joy and dissolving them. And when you learn self-compassion, psychology sees it as developing emotional resilience. Spiritually, it's remembering the truth of unconditional love, the same energy that created you. All of this inner work is part of awakening. You can't ascend without integration. You can't embody higher consciousness without grounding it in your human experience. The path of healing isn't about escaping your humanity, as much as I know we'd all like to do that at times. It's a reconciliation of your human self and the larger part of you that is the real you. To really understand why psychology and spirituality work together, it helps to look at the bigger picture, why we even come to Earth in the first place. I believe that we all chose to be here. As souls, we love to learn, grow, and expand, and there's no better place to do that in all of creation than here on Earth. From a soul's perspective, the challenge of human life is thrilling. Life is a game, and Earth is our playground. We know that when we arrive here. You can see it in small children, and how curious, fearless, and open they are. But as we grow, the world starts teaching us to be afraid, to feel ashamed, and to judge everything as good or bad. I believe that our souls came here to experience the full spectrum of being human. The joy, the pain, all the contrast, not because every event is necessarily good, but because growth can come from anything. Some experiences are beyond heartbreaking, and no one deserves pain. But even in those moments, the soul still finds a way to learn, to heal, and to expand. And when life keeps putting you into smaller and smaller boxes, it's not to trap you. It's to awaken the part of you that remembers how limitless you really are. At some point, your soul says enough. And at that point, breaking free is inevitable. When your soul finally says enough, it's saying, time for the human part of me to see past all the layers of crap that have piled up and see beyond the illusion. There have been a few times in my life when I had a very resonant thought. I'm done. And I knew it was coming from my soul. It was a little scary because I knew how true it was. But even just having that decisive thought was so liberating. But it only just starts there, with the decision from the completeness of yourself that it's time to move up and out from under the crud. Things start to shift, sometimes slowly, and sometimes all at once. You might notice a deep restlessness, like something inside you can't keep living the same way anymore. The old habits, the relationships that drain you, the situations where you shrink yourself just to keep the peace, they all start feeling heavier than they used to. At first, this can look like confusion, exhaustion, or even total collapse. You might think something's wrong with you, but what's really happening is that your soul is waking up. It's pulling your energy out of the patterns that once kept you safe, but now keep you small. This part of the journey can feel really messy. You might question everything, your beliefs, your direction, even who you are. But underneath the chaos is your spirit remembering itself. Every breakdown, every "I can't do this anymore" is actually a breakthrough in disguise. This is your soul saying, you're ready for more now. And as you start listening to that voice, the walls that once confined you begin to crack. Light starts to get in. And yes, you might feel awful, like you've ruined everything or that your life is falling apart. But in reality, your soul is celebrating your graduation. What feels like an ending is really the start of your freedom. That's how awakening begins. And once that awakening begins, it's natural to reach for something that helps you make sense of it. A lot of people find spirituality because they're looking for relief, and that's okay. But sometimes we use spirituality as an escape hatch from being human. That's what's called spiritual bypassing. It's when we try to skip over our pain instead of working through it. We convince ourselves that being high vibe means never feeling anger, sadness, or fear. But being spiritual doesn't mean you're in a constant state of bliss. It means you're willing to look at your shadow with love instead of judgment. The truth is, the only thing you accomplish by bypassing is delaying the inevitable. Those unhealed parts of you will always resurface, and sometimes they refuse to wait any longer. So you might as well get ahead of it. Because when you face the shadow, when you feel what needs to be felt and heal what needs to be healed, that's when real peace becomes sustainable. You actually start to experience that bliss you've been chasing, not as an escape, but as your natural state returning. So as you move through your own healing journey, remember this. Spiritual growth and psychological healing are not two separate paths. They're one. You need both. Psychology helps you understand how your patterns were formed, and spirituality helps you remember who you are beyond them. Psychology gives you the tools to navigate your human experience, and spirituality gives you the wisdom to see the bigger picture behind it. If you focus only on psychology, you might keep fixing yourself without ever realizing you were never broken. And if you focus only on spirituality, you might try to transcend pain without ever learning from it. When you bring them together, you integrate. Your mind, your body, and your spirit all start working as one team. That's where real freedom happens. So if life feels like a freight train crashed into a pile of flaming dumpsters right now, take a breath and trust that something deeper is rearranging itself in your favor. This is the work of both psychology and spirit, and it's leading you home to yourself. Thank you so much for being here with me today. I really love creating these videos and sharing what I've learned with you. If this resonated or helped you in any way, please be sure to like and subscribe and share it with anyone who might benefit. If you're looking for more support on your healing journey, my husband and I offer energy healing sessions and meditation instruction. You can visit dragonflyawakening.com to learn more or book a session with us. I'll see you in the next episode where we'll talk about the in-between place in healing. A liminal space where the old ways no longer fit and the healed version of you is still taking shape. Until then, please take good care of your beautiful self and keep shining your light. Bye.